feel like I'm in my best right now. I feel like I'm moving faster, jumping higher. I feel great.
It is my favorite time of the year, NBA Media Day, which means I'm probably going to be double uploading and triple uploading for the next couple of days, so make sure you drop a like to support the grind, because we have a lot to discuss in regards to Zion Williamson and the remarkable achievement that he finally achieved. I mean, this is something that New Orleans Pelicans fans have been waiting for almost 3 years, and things are starting to look optimistic unless if the Pelicans are playing another sick trick on their fans again. So before we get to the content, we are still doing NBA 2K23 giveaways on my Twitter account. But even if you have NBA 2K23, I've been using my Twitter account to organize games with my subscribers. My subs are the only people that I play NBA 2K with, so if you're interested in that, make sure you're followed on Twitter and Instagram as well. Now that we got all of that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Last year, the New Orleans Pelicans played such a dirty trick on their fans that I can't believe they didn't get more heat from it. I have to give a huge shout out to my brother Get Like Coop, because it's something that we brought up when we were doing the Laced Up podcast together. And it's the fact that the New Orleans Pelicans hyped up everyone in regards to Zion Williamson last year. I mean, think of it this way. You have a bunch of Pelicans fans buying season tickets to the New Orleans Pelicans games primarily to watch Zion Williamson. And this is nothing against Brandon Ingram. This is nothing against the rest of the New Orleans Pelicans team, because you gotta admit, they're looking really good this year and significantly deeper this year. I mean, hell, look at the way their season ended last year in a very gritty playoff defeat versus the Phoenix Suns. I mean, they did lose 4-2, but it was physical, and there were moments where it actually looked like the New Orleans Pelicans would be able to pull off an upset. Although that didn't happen, things are looking significantly better for the Pelicans this year. But there's one question that was lingering on every New Orleans Pelicans fan's mind. I mean, after an entire season of hearing fairly negative press or just very uncomfortable press in regards to Zion Williamson, how is he doing right now? I mean, the last time we heard anything in regards to Zion is the fact that he signed a crazy 5-year, $193 million contract extension with the New Orleans Pelicans. But that's a fairly standard thing for any number one overall pick that even slightly fulfilled his expectations or showed flashes of his potential to do so, unless if you are the Phoenix Suns and DeAndre Ayton, then it might not be as obvious and it might be a little bit more complicated. But the one detail that was blown out of proportion that we were covering in late July was the fact that Zion's contract included weight requirements. Yes, if you remember, Zion Williamson's 5-year, $193 million contract extension with the New Orleans Pelicans contains clauses that allow the team to monitor his weight and body fat, according to a report from the Times. The team intends to conduct weigh-ins for Williamson throughout the entirety of the forward's new contract, and that the sum of his weight and body fat percentage must be below 295 pounds. If Williamson does not meet those conditions, the amount of guaranteed money on his contract can be reduced below $193 million. Alternatively, Williamson could make up to $231 million in other incentives if he performs well. So that's a fairly atypical thing to include in any contract, but I understand why the Pelicans would deem it necessary. If there's been one blip to Zion Williamson's entire career, it's one, well, the injury issues, and two, the weight issues. And most people, myself included, think the weight issues and the injury issues go hand in hand with one another. Historically, we've seen players that are a little bit overweight or just not at ideal basketball shape tear their Achilles tendon or tear their ACLs as a result of their knees not being able to take the amount of weight that they're consistently putting on their legs. My favorite example will always be DeMarcus Cousins. And by the time DeMarcus Cousins came back and learned his lesson that he needs to play at a significantly lower weight in order to have a sustainable NBA career, the damage was already done. He was no longer the all-star he once was. So Mike, we already know all of this stuff, so why are you bringing us this update? Well, we have some good news for you guys, ladies and gentlemen, because it seems like this has been a huge emphasis for the New Orleans Pelicans. So at first we got an update from an article from The Athletic, but after that we actually got a visual representation of how Zion Williamson's looking. As a matter of fact, we're going to compare how he looks this year to how he looked last year at this very time, and I'm sure you guys are going to be very pleased. And so this is coming from William Gullery. It actually is a week-old article, and the article is called Zion Williamson's Trainer Details Summer Workouts That Puts the Pelican Star in Fantastic Shape. It opens up by saying the quest to get Zion Williamson to reach his peak physical form has been an ongoing saga since he arrived in New Orleans in 2019. Though Williamson has dominated when he's played, injuries and conditioning issues have kept him off the court and held him back from reaching his full potential. After sitting out the entire 2021 to 2022 season due to a fractured right foot, Williamson has missed 141 games through the first 3 years of his career. We're going back to that dirty trick, man. Pelicans fans thought that they were going to see Zion Williamson play last year, and then the day of media day, it's revealed that he had a fractured right foot, and at first we didn't think it would keep him out the entire season until it did. But Williamson and his camp believe they've taken a critical step towards solving those problems this summer. The Pelican star just returned to New Orleans after spending 2 months in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, executing a meticulous plan crafted with his strength and conditioning coach, Jasper Bibbs, to prepare for a pivotal year for him and the Pelicans. In an exclusive interview, Bibbs said that the results have been phenomenal. He's in fantastic shape. He's been committed to putting in the work day in and day out. I'm really proud of what he's been able to accomplish. He's a better athlete now than he's ever been. Now, Bibbs didn't mention how much weight Zion has lost over the summer or what his current weight is, but to be fair, man, whenever you're an athlete with the body structure that Zion Williamson has, I mean, conducting weigh-ins could be a little deceiving. This is a man that clearly has a decent proportion of body fat to muscle, so in order to really figure out how much he weighs, you might need to go in and do body fat percentage tests, which is very difficult to do after your workouts. You need to do it like before your workouts, and I'm unsure if they're going to go ahead and reveal that type of information to us because, for all you know, the media could take that stuff and run away with it. The article then goes in and does like a nice little interview with the trainer, but for the most part, the one thing that I think is really important is the fact that Zion Williamson has reportedly been doing 2-a-day workouts, and ultimately, I think the results speak for themselves because here's how Zion Williamson looked last year during NBA Media Day. I mean, take a look at him, and clearly with all due respect to him, you could see there's a decent amount of fat distributed all over his body. I mean, from his face to his arms, just, you don't even need to get the right angle or the wrong angle. Everywhere just doesn't look good when you take a look at Zion Williamson here. And to be fair, man, it's very difficult to stay in shape when you're consistently getting leg injuries because, well, whenever you sustain a huge injury to your leg, that's going to compromise your ability to exercise and stay in shape. And when you're ingesting the calories that Zion Williamson might be ingesting to maintain his muscle mass, that's where it gets a little tricky to stay in playing basketball shape, maintain your size while not looking super big. Hell, it's happened to me. Like, I don't mean to get too personal, but while I was undergoing treatment, like, I wasn't allowed to exercise for 3 months. And slowly I watched myself evolve into a potato and get in the worst shape at all whatsoever. I mean, the first time I exercised again, I couldn't run half a mile without coughing up a lung. So in that sense, I guess I could empathize with Zion because this is a man that has been dealing with injuries that have been keeping him out for an entire year. Now, look at how he looks this year in NBA Media Day. I mean, just look at these pictures and look at the actual interview of Zion Williamson at Media Day. And when you compare it to how he looks last year to this year, I don't want to say it's the same level as when LeBron James returned to the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2014 and looked extremely skinny, but there's obviously a tremendous drop in weight, and honestly, he is kind of looking like how he did during his years at Duke University, which is something that New Orleans Pelicans fans have been clamoring for since the moment they drafted Zion Williamson. I've seen so many tweets on this. What happened to the Zion Williamson that played at Duke University? He was an absolute freak of nature. He was incredibly in shape. He was doing things that were honestly getting him compared to a young LeBron James in terms of his athleticism. Now, as a result of this, now that we have some visual aids, when you you combine that with the fact that the New Orleans Pelicans looked pretty good last year. I mean, they acquired CJ McCollum, they recently extended him for an additional 2 years. It seems like they have the perfect amount of depth with CJ McCollum, Josh Hart, Jackson Hayes, Brandon Ingram, and then you have the emerging Herb Jones, fan favorite Jose Alvarado, and it seems like they finally hit on their head coaching hire last year of Willie Green. I feel like the New Orleans Pelicans could actually surprise a lot of teams this year, especially if they decide to run it back with Point Zion. If you remember, that's a strategy they employed during Zion Williamson's first full season with the Pelicans during the 2020 to 2021 season, which is how Stan Van Gundy decided to employ Zion. So I'm excited to see how it's going to look like if they decide to run back that same exact philosophy with a Zion Williamson that's in shape, surrounded by a bunch of spot-up shooters and 2 reliable scorers in Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. I'm putting their ceiling as a potential number 4 seed in the Western Conference, maybe even more if they really click. I mean, we've seen it before. Teams that we didn't think would make it all the way to the NBA Finals make it all the way to the NBA Finals just because of remarkable team chemistry and really just being able to figure it out down the stretch. I'm talking about the Boston Celtics, who established themselves as a premier defensive team following the NBA All-Star break last year, which was enough for them to get all the way to the NBA Finals. And keep in mind, the Boston Celtics had to beat very difficult teams in order to make it all the way to the NBA Finals. I mean, it was no cakewalk for them whatsoever. They swept the Brooklyn Nets in the first round, then they faced off against the defending NBA champions in the second round and beat them before beating the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals and then losing to the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. Now, I'm not saying that the New Orleans Pelicans are guaranteed Western Conference champions, but I do think if they have a commitment to defense and really figure out how to use Zion Williamson now that he's fully healthy and the whole team stays fully healthy, Kyrie Irving said it best. Usually the most healthiest team in the NBA is the team that ends up winning the NBA Finals, which is why depth typically translates to championships. So let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Pelicans fan. How excited are you about this season? It's nice that we could finally get you guys a positive update on Zion Williamson. And make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to run some games of 2K23 with me. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.